Imagine being kidnapped from your hostel, marched deep into a forest with your hands tied, and then forced to look at the bodies of people allegedly killed because their families could not pay ransom. That is a chilling account given by a rescued student of Gateway ICT Polytechnic, Sapade in Ogun State. The student said his abductors not only threatened to kill him and other victims, but allegedly demonstrated that the threats by killing a man in the forest and showing the captives bodies they claim belonged to previous victims. The student, whose identity has not been disclosed, recounted his ordeal in a video documentary released by the Ogun State Police Command. His account provides a disturbing picture of what the student allegedly experienced after gunmen stormed their hostel in the Ipara area of Ogun State on July 29th. According to the student, the attackers arrived shooting and moved from one apartment to another, creating panic before taking several students hostage. He recalled hearing warnings that kidnappers had entered the building. Some of the students attempted to hide, including inside the toilet at the back of the apartment. But the gunmen eventually found them, ordered everyone to lie down, and accused them of being internet fraudsters. The student reportedly tried to explain that they were simply students, but the kidnappers allegedly refused to believe them. The abductors, according to the student, appeared to focus on money. They allegedly asked who the student boss was and suggested that somebody connected to them would pay to secure their release. The students were then tied up and taken into the bush. What happened next is the most disturbing part of the account. The students alleged that while the group was being taken deeper into the forest, they encountered a man whose hands have already been tied behind his back. According to his account, the abductors stabbed the man and killed him before leaving his body behind. The allegation had not been independently verified, but the student's account was included in the police documentary detailing the rescue operation. The message to the student was apparently unmistakable: cooperate or face the same fate. The captives were allegedly moved between different locations, mostly at night, to avoid detection. The students said that they were forced through forests and crossed approximately 3 rivers before reaching different hideouts. He described conditions of hunger, beatings, and exhaustion, saying those who struggled to walk because of injuries were allegedly beaten by their captors. There was also another victim in the forest. The students said the abductors introduced them to a man known as Biggie, who they had allegedly said had been kidnapped a day earlier. That encounter reportedly reinforced the students' fear that we were dealing with a larger kidnapping operation rather than an isolated attack. Then came the ransom demand. According to the students, the kidnappers initially demanded as much as 30 million naira from each victim. The amounts were later reduced for some victims following negotiations with their families. But while those negotiations continued, the captives were allegedly subjected to psychological terror. The students said the kidnappers took them from an area in the forest where they were shown human remains. The abductors allegedly told the students that the bodies belonged to victims whose family had failed to pay ransom. Again, these claims are allegations from a rescued victim and have not been independently established. But whether every detail is eventually confirmed or not, the accounts demonstrate the psychological weapon used by kidnappers: fear. The students were allegedly told that they too would be killed and buried in the forest if the families failed to produce the demanded money. Food and water were reportedly scarce. At one point, the captives were allegedly given only gari to eat. The kidnappers were also apparently monitoring the surrounding area for signs of security forces. The students said whenever vehicles or motorcycles approached, the abductors ordered the victims to lie down or move deeper into the bush. The captors were determined to avoid detection. But eventually, the security operation came. The rescue reportedly involved the Nigerian police force, the Department of State Service, and other security agencies. According to the students, when the kidnappers came under pressure, they attempted to flee with the victims. And then the student made a critical decision. He said he persuaded one of his friends not to follow the fleeing abductors and instead moved towards the direction from which they believed security personnel were approaching. In the confusion, the student was shot in the leg. At first, he did not know whether the approaching personnel were police officers. The situation became even more dangerous when the kidnappers returned to check on him. The student said he pretended to be dead. He remained until the abductors eventually left him behind. Then he heard a voice that changed everything. A policeman reportedly instructed others to check whether he was still alive. That was when the student realized that the people approaching were actually security personnel. He called out and identified himself as one of the kidnapped students. He and other victims were rescued. The student, despite his injuries, expressed gratitude to the security personnel. He said the experience changed his perception of the police and praised the officers for entering the forest to rescue the victims. The rescue operation had been described by Ogun State authorities as a coordinated effort involving the police, armed forces, DSS, Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps, Amotekun Corps, local vigilantes and hunters. Governor Dapo Abiodun subsequently declared that kidnappers and other criminal elements would have no hiding place in Ogun State. The Nigerian police force later confirmed that 3 suspected kidnappers were killed during a gun battle with security operatives on August 6th. According to Force Police Relations Officer, CSP, Ani Iyedu, after the students were rescued, police anti-kidnapping operatives and DSS personnel tracked the suspects to their hideouts. A gun battle followed. 3 suspects were reportedly neutralized, while others escaped with gunshot injuries. But the students' testimony leaves Nigerians with an uncomfortable question. How many kidnapping victims never made it to their homes to tell the stories? The Ogun rescue demonstrates what coordinated intelligence and security operation can achieve. But it also exposes the brutal reality facing victims who disappear into Nigerian forests, where ransom demands, intimidation and violence can become tools of organized criminal groups. The rescued students survived. Their account now offers investigators potentially valuable information about the kidnappers, their methods and their hideouts. But the wider challenge remains dismantling the networks that make kidnapping profitable in the first place. Until that happens, every student traveling to school, every family living near isolated communities, and every Nigerian using a remote road remains vulnerable to the same nightmare. And for the students of Gateway ICT Polytechnic, what began as an ordinary night in a hostel became a terrifying battle for survival, one they were fortunate enough to live through. I'm Chimejim Okoro, and I will see you soon.